trying out a new casino, Empire Casino. Try to speak to the poker room director and see if he'll give us permission to record. Tried before, but it's hard to catch him at the right times. So we'll test our luck and see.
$12 midnight.
Poker room director wasn't in the building and we were in for 400. We're out for 0. Back to the drawing board. Definitely not as fun not having the phone and camera on. Anyway, moving on from that Empire session, the very next day we find ourselves back at Aspers in London, Stratford, hungry for some food and redemption. I buy in for a standard 200 big blinds, which as you know at 1-2 is 400 quid. We take our seat as usual, and in what is our very first hand of the session, we get our ace 3 of diamonds. To be honest, a hand I'm not the most comfortable playing with yet, but there is only one way to gain experience. One way is by raising to £8 with it. Calls from the low jack and button means 3 ways to a flop of 10 king ace rainbow. I'm first to act out of position. I have top pair with the second lowest kicker in the game, and on a board that hits my range well, I make a fairly large bet of 15, hoping to scare my opponents and take it down right here, right now, or at least narrow the field, but they both call and come along to the turn, which is the 7 of clubs. Pretty irrelevant in my eyes as it doesn't complete any straight draws, which best case is what my opponents were calling with. So my main concern at this point is the fact that both players called on the flop, so I'll just check to see what they do now, as I don't want to bloat the pot when we could be dominated multi-way here. Low jack now leads for an oversized bet of £35 and button calls, making me thankful I did check. I'm of course out of there. Just to finish off here, on the river comes a queen and it goes check check. Low jack shows king 10, button shows ace queen and takes it down with a better 2-bet. Next, we pick up the TNTs in the low jack. There is a £5 straddle on, so when it folds to me, I raise 3x to 15. We get called by the cutoff and the under the gun straddler, so 3 ways to a flop of 7-2. Great flop, preserving our equity. Under the gun straddler checks. Action on me now. My hand is still vulnerable to many Broadway combos, so I bet for both protection from higher cards and for value versus lower pocket pairs with my bet of £25. But that's all she wrote for this one, as both of. Now in this hand we find ourselves holding ace 10 offsuit in the cutoff position. The player in the low jack raises to 6. I decide to make the call and the big blind completes. The flop is an appealing sight when we see the 5 of hearts accompanied by 2 tasty aces. I think it's safe to assume that we have a significant advantage at this point. When we get checked to, I choose to just check back, allowing my opponents an opportunity to catch up, considering that we are unlikely to be called by anything other than pocket pairs. The turn reveals the 4 of diamonds, complete in the rainbow. Low jack makes a bet of 5 now, and I opt to just call. Unfortunately, the big blind folds, leaving us heads up to the river, which reveals another 4, completing our hand to a full house. Now the villain initiates a bet of 10. Naturally, I must go for value and decide to bet 50 quid, but my bet proves more than sufficient to force a fold from the villain. Onward to the next hand, where we peel king queen off in the big. Folds round to the hijack, who limps the cutoff, and small blind follows suit, and I bump it up to £12, which to my surprise they all call. Flop comes what I'd consider quite wet in 7 queen 8 with 2 heart, but we land top pair with a king kicker. In my mind, probably winning, but not really in the mood to offer promotional discount to see a turn with all the potential draws out there in a 4-way pot. So I bet 30 squids and we take this pot home as everyone mucks. Looking down at queen jack of diamonds now. Under the gun £5 straddle is on. Low jack raised to £15. Hijack folds. I have a hand that plays well multi-way. I'm just going to call. Button folds, so we are now in position if we go to a flop. But now small blind 3 bets to 60. Folds back round to the low jack, who 4 bets to about £100. He's all in. Now I have what feels like a tough decision, but as soon as I come to the realization that I'm facing 2 uncapped ranges, importantly with this small blind who covers me yet to act, I could face a 5-bet squeeze if I call, and I would have to then fold. So is it worth a call in this spot with 40% of a royal flush draw? You tell me in the comments. I ended up folding here. When the board runs out, we find out we would have probably won one of our biggest pots ever, as we would have won the hand. To be honest, I can't remember if it was 2 pair or trips or flush. I just remember the feeling knowing I would have won a lot of chips. But anyway, I soon recognize no point being bogged down about the result here. We just keep it moving. And in the next hand, we pick up ace-3 suited. Again, an opportunity to get some practice in with this type of hand. +1 opens the action with a raise to 6. I should probably fold here, but make a loose call as I have an ace blocker, but also wouldn't mind a multi-way pot with a hand that holds nut flush potential, and multi-way it goes when we get 4 more callers after me, so a whole 6 ways to a flop, which comes 7 ace 4 with 2 spades. Not the dream flop of hearts we were wishing for, but we do land top pair with a non-existent kicker. So when +1 C bets £12, he'll be doing this with a whole lot of his range, a high frequency of the time. So I proceed with a cautious call. Everyone else ends up folding out. So just heads up now to a turn card, which is the Jack of Hearts. Interestingly now, +1 checks to me. In theory, I think I should be ahead here now, as if he had an ace with a better kicker, he should be betting. But now I make the mistake of only betting £15. The mistake being not betting larger for protection and value, as my hand is very much vulnerable and at the same time ahead a lot of the time here, and all I'm doing with this small sizing is giving him favourable odds to see a turn on a somewhat wet board. At that price, my opponent unsurprisingly does make the call, and the river is the king of spades, bringing in the flush draw. My opponent now leads for 40. Although not too sure what to put him on, this definitely feels like a value bet in which I'm no longer good here. I think bluffing into him to represent a flush won't be smart without at least a good spade blocker. Ultimately, I fold, and his line makes sense when +1 shows king jack off or runner 2 pair. Nice hand, and we move on to finding ourselves in the big blind with ace queen offsuit, which I don't show until the end of the hand. Player in +2 raises to 7 hijack calls. With my hand, there's certainly an argument for squeeze raising here, but I opt to just call instead, resulting in a 3-way pot. The flop comes down 9 jack ace, a favourable board for me as I hit top pair with a good kicker. I make a tricky move though and just check, intending to induce a bet from my opponents. In retrospect, given the multi-way pot, I think there is a stronger case for a value bet here to deny my opponent's equity. Anyway, both players check back. The turn brings the 9 of diamonds, a seemingly inconsequential card that shouldn't change much unless someone had a 9. I continue my story of weakness by checking once more, aiming to induce bets from hands like jacks, lower pocket pairs, or weaker aces. Through my slow play, the hijack player seized opportunity and bets £10 now. I decide to make the call. The +2 follows suit as the river brings an 8 of hearts. Now queen 10 is a straight, but I do hold 1 blocker to that specific combo. Overall, I don't think this river card should significantly impact the hand. So when it's my turn to act, I choose to make a thin value block bet of 20. +2 player quickly folds, but the hijack player takes some time before raising with a value heavy sizing of £55. After contemplating for just 10 seconds, I make up my mind that he's good. Later, my opponent tells me he had 10-9. Nice hand. I definitely made a huge mess of this hand from the very beginning to the end with all the slow playing. I should have just raised pre-flop, but we move and learn on to the next one.
So you know what?
Where we peeled the sailboats in the low jack, +1 opens to £6. I call big blind calls, 3 ways. Flop comes 10-9-4 rainbow. Boom, we hit bottom set. Now big blind leads for 6. +1 makes the call, and I just make the call to disguise my strength on a fairly dry board. Afraid raising may blow my cover here. Now the turn comes the ace of clubs. Big blind continues the lead for 15. +1 is out of here. I now hoping he has improved on the turn or has a 2 pair. Take the opportunity to lower the SPR and try get stacks in before the river with a raise to 50. Unfortunately, that was enough pressure to force villain away, making me think calling to be in position on the river may have been the better play, but maybe I'm just being results orientated. Let me know what you think. Should should I have raised earlier on the flop? On to the next one. Alright, in this one we find ourselves with ace 7 off in a 4-way limp pot in the small blind. Flop shows 3-9 ace rainbow, as dry as they come. I check out of position, big blind checks, but cutoff now bets out £10, button folds, and I just call, big blind folds, so heads up to the turn, which shows the 6 of clubs. Pretty inconsequential. I check with the aim to call, he bets 16. And I do call. River is the king of hearts. Now if he has a marginal hand, I'm torn between betting for thin value or a check call strategy, but checking is what I choose to do to hopefully induce a bluff. But villain checks back, and when we show the ace, we are
Disaster. Can I drink beer?
Ace.
Do you think this is good, yeah? Fucking here he goes.
Next up, we have the ladies in the cutoff and face a £10 raise from the seat to our direct right in the hijack. Being in and out of conversation throughout the session with this player, he clearly is competent at poker, but that's not going to change the fact that this spot is a free bet near enough 100% of the time. So I raise to £30 and folds back to him, and he makes the call. A low flop would be nice, but no, it is a nightmare when we see ace king 8 with 2 diamonds. He checks to me, we have third pair, but he doesn't know that, or at least I wish I was thinking along those lines. I make the mistake now of checking instead of betting my range, which in theory I should be doing, especially with the straight and flush draws out there. Anyway, we proceed to the turn card in the form of the 7 of clubs. Hijack now bets 20. Hijack is good enough to know I probably don't have a king or ace now. However, I proceed with the call. In the odd chance he senses I could still be slow playing. Now the river is the 5 of clubs. Inconsequential, but now hijack bets 75 quid. Well, I just think it's an easy fold now. In the end, villain shows his bluff with the 4s. GG. Lesson from this hand being betting the flop rather than checking the flop and calling his turn bet would have probably prevented him from being able to bluff the river. But yeah, we move on to having king 9 suited in position. By the way, excuse the messed up quality for this hand as it was accidentally recorded in slow-mo and had to retime it. Anyway, +1 limped. Folds to me in position. I raise to 7 quid, then small blind 3 bets to £21, whereby I just make the call and we go 2 ways to a flop of king 3, king rainbow, happy days. And now villain C bets £20. I just make the call. The turn is the 6 of hearts, brings in a flush draw but not a concern. Now villain checks, and I feel as though he has a hand like ace 10, ace jack, or maybe ace queen now. So for that reason I opt to just check back with the hope of gaining more value on the river, which comes a 10 of spades. But now villain does retake the lead with a bet of 20. So I'm thinking whether there's any point in raising now, as unless he has a king with a higher kicker or a boat, I think we aren't getting called by a raise unless he has to potentially get sticky with a hand like ace 10. But even then I think he'd probably fold that combo, so I rationalize to just make a call here, and as expected we are good. But do let me know if you think I'm missing out on value in this.
It's a very straightforward point. I went on the BBC, yeah, on the feed, and they said BT loses 13,000 jobs due to AI. Like,
cool.
Do you know how many millions of people go on fucking BBC every day? Right?
Yeah.
Instead of
it's
traffic.
yeah.
So all they see is like the normal Joe Soap, right? Just sees
Now straight to a 4-way limped flop, which comes 6 jack queen with 2 clubs. The blinds check, +2 bets 5, and I hold the top pair with a mediocre kicker in position. I'm not going anywhere, I just make the call and the blinds fold. 2 ways now, and the 7 of diamonds shows up for the turn. Villain barrels for £15 on a board where I think we are still quite strong, only really losing to a 2 pair in my mind. So I make the call, and on the river comes the 3 of diamonds. Interestingly now, villain triple barrels for £35, which if for value should usually always have my hand beat. So the question is he bluffing? And on a board where both front straight and flush draws have missed, he could likely be bluffing with several combos in his range. So I eventually on that basis justify a call, and thankfully we are good. Let's go.
one time over. I love it, man. Someone, what was the flop? I can't even remember now. 967? 967?
Now, in this final significant hand, it will determine whether we win or lose in the session, as we are currently sitting exactly break even in the low jack with the very playable 10-9 of spades. +2 opens for £6. I make the call, button calls, and the blinds call. So I go 5 ways to a flop of jack 10-8 with 2 clubs. Great flop. I am open-ended and have second pair +2 c bets for 10. I just call, and so does the older, tighter gentleman in the small blind, and the turn comes a beautiful 7 of diamonds. Let's go. +2 checks to me. I bet 35 now for value and protection, mainly to charge those better draws that we are vulnerable to. The older gentleman makes a call, and he rarely bluffs to my knowledge, so it does make me slightly concerned as to what he could have. And the river comes, the 9 of diamonds. Well, that's the worst card in the deck. I now play the board and at best can hope to split the pot, but not when this older gent now leads for £75. I know I am not good. I fold, and he shows king queen of diamonds. Yep, very nice hand, sir. Lesson to take from this one, looking back, is I think my bet on the turn should probably have been larger for both value and protection, as with that run out of cards, I'm probably not getting called by anything worse than 2 pairs regardless of my bet size, so should be charging the maximum there moving forward. Anyway, we leave the table and cash out for a net loss of £50. I need to think about the pot odds I'm giving my opponent when I'm betting for protection. My bet sizing is a little bit small. Need to go a bit larger there to improve my game. But if you guys can recommend anything, you know, constructive criticism is always welcome. Guys, your support is much appreciated, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace, guys. Thank you for watching.